Il va mourir le jour de son anniversaire.
Et il est avec la voix de Lucas.
Ce soir, je serai mort.
Tu te réveilles. Il y a quelqu'un d'autre qui est à côté de toi.
Toi qui m'aimais, moi qui t'aimais.
Hello and welcome to this week's cinema show here on Arts24. I'm joined by our new film critic, Manon Kerjean, the founder of Lost in Frenchlation, a film club that's been making French cinema accessible to non-French speakers in Paris since 2015. They screen French movies with English subtitles. Hi, Manon. Well, before we start talking about French cinema, of course, American cinema just lost an icon, Robert Redford, who died leaving behind not just his own extraordinary body of work, but a lasting connection with France. Tell us more about that.
Yes, beyond his César d'honneur, which is the equivalent in France of the Oscars in 2002, Robert Redford often acknowledged how French New Wave had shaped his vision of independent cinema, and he translated this vision into the Sundance Institute, which opened its doors to many French and Francophone filmmakers. For example, Maïmouna Doucouré, whose debut film Mignonne, Cuties, premiered at Sundance in 2020.
Yeah, I remember that.
And he had a very long history with the Cannes Film Festival, from arriving broke in 1956, sleeping on the beach in front of a Carlton hotel with no plans of becoming an actor, until he returned as a Hollywood legend with films such as Jeremiah Johnson, Milagro, and All Is Lost. And he also received a Palme d'Honneur in Cannes in 2019.
Yeah, he was certainly well respected here. Well, there have been many tributes to Robert Redford here in France. French critics embraced him not just as a Hollywood star, but as a true auteur. And he actually spoke a bit of French too. Here he is with Sidney Pollack in France.
Nous avons préparé ce film ensemble. Mr. Pollack and I have known each other for 10 years. And now we're doing a...
Et maintenant, nous allons faire un autre film ensemble.
Do more. I hope, j'espère.
Well, from Hollywood now to French new releases. Tell us, Manon, what films should we be looking out for this week?
Yeah, we'll start with Dalloway, which tells the story of Clarissa, a writer played by Cécile de France, who joins an artist residency where she meets an AI assistant named Dalloway, voiced by iconic French singer Mylène Farmer.
Oh, wow.
You can kind of think of her as France's Madonna, only
Definitely.
darker and more enigmatic. And she very rarely appears in films, even if she performed at the Cannes Film Festival this year, making her presence here even more striking. So this AI becomes her partner in creation and her guiding voice, at first helpful and then disturbingly intrusive.
Wow, I can't quite imagine my virtual assistant having Mylène Farmer's voice, but it does sound very quirky. Let's take a look.
C'est bon.
Bonjour Clarissa.
Bonjour Dalloway.
Bien dormi?
Oui, ça va.
Il est 7h10. Le ciel est dégagé, on prévoit 35 degrés dans l'après-midi. J'ai réglé la température de l'appartement. J'ai sélectionné le mode Eco 1.
L'Union européenne annonce 856 morts pour le seul mois de mai.
She does have a fantastic voice. Well, the subject here is also really timely, isn't it? Because we're all very anxious about generative AI. But what about the film? Did it work for you?
In my opinion, it tried a bit too much to be like a French version of Black Mirror, and some characters lack a bit of depth. And since the main character is coping with a terrible loss, I think the film could have explored further the emotional dimension, which I think the French are usually better at.
Okay. Well, moving on now to Rembrandt. This is a film whose release has been delayed quite a few times, but it is coming out in French theatres. The film does have a link to the Dutch master painter of its title, but it's not that straightforward, is it? Tell us more.
Yes, Pierre Schoeller's Rembrandt is not a biopic about the painter.
Okay.
It's a psychological thriller about two nuclear physicists whose lives are unexpectedly shaken when they encounter three specific paintings at the London's National Gallery. Let's take a look.
Ce n'est pas l'expo du siècle.
Exagère. Il y a quand même des très bons Raphaël.
Ah, attends.
Qu'est-ce qui se passe?
J'ai perdu ta mère. Elle est là et elle est pas là. T'as connu ce genre de... comme ça avec quelqu'un? Et le matin, tu te réveilles. Il y a quelqu'un d'autre qui est à côté de toi.
Le nucléaire, le climat, c'est notre métier. Ça va vous paraître paradoxal, mais vivre à Fukushima, c'est plus sûr que de vivre à Roubaix.
Et si on se trompait sur les aléas climatiques?
Okay, looks pretty mysterious. But Manon, how did you like the film?
I really loved the film, and especially that contrast between the hyper-rational world of nuclear science colliding with the emotional power of art. And it asks a very interesting but simple question, whether a single work of art can change a life, basically. The cast is pure French cinema gold. Camille Cotin, who many will know from Call My Agent, and Romain Duris from The Spanish Apartment, L'Auberge Espagnole. And Pierre Schoeller's last film, Un peuple et son roi, One Nation, One King, was about the French Revolution. I highly recommend it, but this one is much more subtle and introspective. And if you're interested in seeing one of the paintings, it's called An Old Man in an Armchair, and it's located in room 22 of the National Gallery.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, I'll definitely see that painting in a different light next time I'm in the National Gallery in London. Well, next, here in France, we're talking about a celebrity couple, and few were as glamorous or as turbulent as Yves Montand and Simone Signoret. Their story's being told on the big screen now by Diane Kurys in a film called Moi qui t'aimais, in its French title. Its international title is C'est si bon. It was screened in the Cannes Classic section of the festival this year. How did you like it, Manon?
Yes, indeed. Every French person remembers them. Simone Signoret was an Oscar-winning actress acclaimed for roles in Room at the Top and Army of Shadows. And Yves Montand was a charismatic singer and actor known for his political commitment as much as for films like The Wages of Fear. And rather than tracing their entire lives, the film zooms in on their final 12 years together until Simone's death in 1985. The casting is pretty bold. Roche Dizem, familiar to international audiences from Chocolat to Oh Mercy, Roubaix une lumière, plays Montand. He doesn't look much like him, but he strikingly captured his gestures and voice. And Marina Foïs, who's usually seen in more contemporary roles such as Police or The Workshop, L'Atelier.
Gritty stuff.
Yes. Well, here she really brings to life both the charisma and the fragility of Signoret. Let's take a look at the trailer.
Simone Signoret, Yves Montand, est-ce que par hasard vous vous aimeriez?
On s'aime, et on s'aime bien. Alors tu dirais quoi, toi, hein? C'est quoi le secret de notre couple?
Bah, je sais pas, j'ai pas de secret, moi.
Oh, t'es chiant, tu joues pas le jeu.
Et vous vous aimez encore?
Tu sais, quand tu vis avec quelqu'un depuis aussi longtemps, tu sais plus vraiment si c'est ta femme, ta meilleure amie, ta pire ennemie.
T'es beau.
C'est juste une chose. Tu peux pas vivre sans elle.
And I guess in that film, they have to mention Montand's affair with Marilyn Monroe that really made the headlines at that time, right?
Yeah, imagine the scandal. France's most admired couple, shaken by Americans' ultimate sex symbol.
Yeah.
The romance was splashed across tabloids worldwide, humiliating Signoret, and yet she never left him, proving the complexity of their bond. And some people criticized the film for turning Signoret into a victim, but I don't fully agree. I think what it really stresses out is how toxic their relationship was. And it's also a good reminder that even the brightest love stories are complicated, messy, and just human sometimes.
And that's a pretty big challenge. I don't think anyone wants Marilyn Monroe showing up in their marriage. Well, finally, Manon, you wanted to highlight a retrospective happening in Paris, a great filmmaker here.
Yes, the Cinémathèque Française, one of the world's most important film institutions with a museum, an archive, and a cinema all-in-one, is celebrating filmmaker Maurice Pialat with a major retrospective this month. So Pialat was known for his raw style, and he often clashed with actors and crews, but that tension gave his films their incredible intensity. His Palme d'Or winning Sous le soleil de Satan, Under the Sun of Satan, will be screened on a restored print, followed by a talk with his daughter and famous producer Sylvie Pialat. Among the other films being shown, there will be À nos amours, To Our Loves, which revealed Sandrine Bonnaire as a teenager and launched her remarkable career, but also Van Gogh. And let's not forget that moment in Cannes after the screening of Sous le soleil de Satan, when he raised his fist to the audience after being booed, proving that for Pialat, cinema was never about pleasing people, but mostly about telling the truth.
Yeah, he was a real iconoclast. And that retrospective runs until October 1st at the Cinémathèque Française. Thanks for the tip, Manon, and thanks for the roundup of French new releases this week. A reminder that the directors of the 3 new releases we talked about will be at Lost in Frenchlition in October for Q&As in English with the audience. You can get details online if you're in Paris. Otherwise, we'll be back next week with more cinema here on Arts 24.
No.